guess I'm just the best. My name is Cassidy Newman and my pronouns are he, him. I'm in my second year of a Bachelor of Arts, majoring in music and anthropology. Let Cass cook. I'm very lucky to have such a wide group of people behind me. So we're all kind of working on it together.
So you have no specific campaign manager?
I would say Kate Kerrigan, Mia Williams and Jonathan Gilliland.
Okay.
So would there be an individual name that appears on authorizations?
Mia Williams. White.
Do you know the hex code? Or is it just...
It's white.
It's like triple, like 5 Fs or something.
Okay.
Easy.
Great.
NLS. I'm a member of the Australian Labor Party. I would consider myself left-wing, democratic socialist.
What do you think progressive means in the context of university students in the Labor Party, and how does this compare to the political attitudes of Labor government ministers?
I think being progressive as a member of the Labor Party, especially as a member of the rank and file, is ensuring that you don't let the Labor Party get away with the things that they want you to let them get away with, if that makes sense. So it's involved around fighting both inside and outside of the party to ensure that a fairer Australia can be made.
Do you think your political attitudes align with that of the Labor Party?
On occasion. I think incorporation is necessary and at this point inevitable for the USU. However, I think that the recent governance changes that were attempted to be pushed through by the current USU board and president are unnecessary. And I think the fact that none of the board could see this, given that it was a unanimous decision, I think is not on.
Actually, to circle back to the Australian Labor Party, could you please give me an example of where your politics do align and where they do not align with the ALP?
So the reason why I joined the Australian Labor Party is because I strongly believe in a party for the working class and a party built by the unions and supported by the unions. However, currently, I'm very disappointed with the lack of action, the lack of meaningful action the party's taken on issues such as Palestine and affordable housing within Sydney.
Okay.
I am the treasurer of Sydney Uni Radio Group, and I have been in Surge since I started university last year. I'm also the education officer of the Conservatorium Students Association.
Okay, well that answers my next question. Just have you had any executive roles? Is there any other executive position you've had in any student body?
I'm the intercampus officer of the SRC.
Okay.
I think the powers of the USU board revolve around making sure that the USU can function in its primary role as a service provider and making sure that the services align with what is most needed for the student body.
What service do you think that is?
Services such as cost of living relief, like Food Hub, services such as just like providing food on campus like the USU outlets. Well, we've seen that in the past that the USU don't necessarily like to take political stances on anything, and I think a lot of my policies and a lot of other candidates' policies can be seen as political because they've been made political, but I think it depends on what you think is political and what role politics has to play on that. I would support paying members of paying volunteers. I think anyone who works for any organisation deserves to be paid.
Where would you see that money coming from?
There's the $1.5 million surplus that was recorded in the last financial report that is accessible, as well as the fact that in his address at the recent USU SGM, Bryson said they spent tens of thousands of dollars on consultancy fees for the governance changes. I want to know where that money comes from, and I think that money could be used more appropriately elsewhere.
One of your policies is to swap shifts and have paid staff have shifts at Food Hub.
Yep.
Who are the paid staff that you refer to there, and how would you rearrange shifts?
The paid staff I refer to are people who work in a paid capacity at the USU outlets, such as Herman's and Manning and Courtyard. And I think a system where every so often you're rostered onto Food Hub would not only give a demand for longer opening hours so that these people can get paid, but also ensures that Food Hub can be open for longer and more accessible for all students. That's a great question. In my mind, I can't necessarily think of something that has been achieved.
Okay. Another one of your policies is to decrease prices and card surcharges at USU outlets. What would you've said that you would draw on the $1.5 million surplus for that. How much money do you think it would cost to decrease prices and remove the card surcharge or decrease the surcharges at USU outlets?
Well, the current Labor government has already committed to getting rid of debit card surcharges by the beginning of 2026. So I think that given that there is already a path being put in place for that, the USU should be in a financial situation where they could also begin to roll back card surcharges.
Okay.
Herman's Bar. Food Hub. I think the greatest limitation of the USU is the fact that not enough free members of the USU or undergraduate students who aren't members of the USU know how much potential is within becoming a member. And I think that is due to a lack of promotion and advertising. When you try to describe the USU to someone, I feel like it always boils down to, oh, they run the clubs and societies. And I feel like there's so much more that isn't known.
So how would you address that?
I just think with more advertising and more promotion, there are advertising boards already in Courtyard and in Manning which display news headlines at the moment, which can be used to display USU promotions or USU discounts for members or the USU services.
Okay. You mentioned wanting to translate materials for international students. Do you think the USU's current outreach to international students is adequate?
No, I don't. Materials in languages other than English, I think, could help tremendously. But also, this is a problem that has been occurring since the introduction of voluntary student unionism, and it's the fact that unfortunately international students just aren't aware of of the USU, or a majority of them aren't. And I think there are ways to fix that.
Do you think that translating those materials would completely solve that problem?
No, I just think it's a step. I think from the USU perspective, the cost of living would be number one priority. I think the most ambitious promise, or policy rather, is extending food hub opening hours and paying paying workers to work there, because this is a policy, or similar iterations of this policy have appeared in virtually every candidate for like 5 years, and yet it still hasn't been done. So I think, how can I achieve that? Be as vocal as I can in board meetings, and just don't let the promise or the policy slip away from my mind if elected.
Okay. Another one of your policies is to implement further measures for SASH training, such as in-person consent training and accreditation from organisations. Would you enforce this or incentivise people to partake in this?
Yes.
How would you do that?
I think all executives of clubs and societies or organisations should be enrolled in compulsory in-person SASH training. Currently, all you have to do is a 1 hour module, which you can do in 5 minutes by just clicking next. And I don't think it's enough currently to stop sexual violence.
How would your envisioned training model improve on that?
I just think by getting people in a room together and confronting them with the realities of sexual violence and not giving them an option to just skip through it is really quite confronting, but also can make people think twice about the measures that they themselves take in order to commit to stopping sexual violence.
I suppose my follow-up to that would be that you do mention in another policy that there's just simply not enough sessions for in-person training in terms of things like first aid and mental health first aid, which is absolutely true. Like the wait list, like once those things open, they just get snapped up within 15 minutes, right? And when you say you want to confirm you would like to make this actually a mandatory session.
I think I would like to make SASH training mandatory, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and for those to be in person. Logistically, how would you go about doing this, considering that the USU currently already just has this problem where they're running into the fact that they just can't get enough in-person training sessions of other kinds?
Well, I think one way that can be done is by employing more administrative staff, which can aid in the backlog of emails that they have to respond to, and can aid in booking more sessions. And I guess it's a sort of naive hope, but I'd hope that clubs and societies executives would see the importance of attending these trainings.
No, it's more so stemming from the fact that
there's not enough, right?
Yes, and it's like I do like really. I also think that every club executive should go through this, and they should all be aware of this. But on the side, well, it's also because the clubs training is done at the university itself, and there is a great limitation to that, and they're trying to distribute this across multiple organizations.
Okay.
Currently, I myself am not involved in the organisation of any campaigns, but whenever I can, I will always take time out to participate in campaigns organised by other people and fight for what I believe is right. I attend most pro-Palestine demonstrations, and I have since the beginning of the encampment. I think it's incredibly important, and I think everyone should endeavour to apply BDS principles in every aspect of their life. 100%.
How do you think the USU should do that?
By adhering to BDS principles and recommendations, as well as research into their investments and perhaps a refresher on where these investments come from. Briefly, not enough.
What did that involve specifically?
I knew someone who had a tent. I was at the tent for one day, but looking back on it, I feel like I could have done more.
What more would you have done?
I would have stayed the night, stayed multiple nights myself. I think it's a shameful repression of student voices on campus, and I think it's just a way to repress students and continue the corporatization of tertiary education, and it's being seen nationwide.
Have you been involved in any action regarding the campus access policy?
None other than attending unauthorised stores day.
Have you ever been capped yourself?
I have not. I think although there's an argument for it, I think it's very easy to blame international students for a myriad of problems we see, and the government continues to do that, as well as the opposition, in terms of areas such as housing. I think everyone should be free to study where they want. If international students want to come and study at the University of Sydney, I don't see a problem with that. No.
Great. Now we'll move on to some fun questions. If you were a frog, what colour frog would you be?
I like this part. I would be one of those really bright ones, like red and blue and green.
Any particular species, or just those colours?
Just those colours.
Right. And if you were a drink, what drink would you be?
A Mother Frosty Berry energy drink.
I'm not familiar with that one, but I'm sure it's great.
Nothing written down. Left-wing individuals. I think recently the USU has seen far too many right-wing influences enter. I want to be in a position where I can actively work towards helping all students. Although I can't represent all students, I can certainly do my best to help them, and I'm really passionate about that. I think I'm a great leader, and I have good ideas, and I guess I'm just the best.
Okay, thank you so much, Cassidy.
You're welcome. Thank you.